You're listening to the BBC World Service. I'm Julian Marshall, and this is Newshour. Filsan Ahmed used to be Ethiopia's Minister of Women, Children and Youth, but she resigned last September. She cited personal reasons in her resignation letter to the Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, but for months beforehand, she said she tried to shine a light on the widespread use of rape against Tigrayan women and girls by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces. The conflict in Tigray has now been going on for 15 months with little to show yet from the various mediation efforts between Tigrayan rebels of the TPLF and the government. The rebels have pulled back to the Tigray region to, in their own words, give peace a chance. But a senior Ethiopian general has again said this week that the only way the war can be ended is by burying or eliminating the TPLF. When I spoke to Filsan Ahmed, I asked her first exactly why she'd left the Ethiopian government.
I was very clear from the beginning that I was against the whole war, and I didn't see why we need to go to a war. And that started me having issues with the Prosperity Party and putting me in sort of pressure between me and the government, putting me in odd situations, if you may say. And on top of that, I spoke against the rape early in February. I put a task force in beginning of January. I think you remember the war began in November 2020. So I went against the PP in terms of publishing the reports, and clearly the truth was problematic for the government. And I had to make a decision to really keep going, to keep speaking, until I make the decision to step away from the government and from the position I was assigned to.
In January 2021, Munir Ahmed, head of Women's Affairs at your ministry, told Ahudu Radio that reports of rape in Tigray were unfounded. I mean, I assume you were aware of that. You didn't try to contradict her, or maybe you did. Maybe you challenged her.
Well, that's my state minister, actually. Her name is Munir Ahmed. Yes, she did. And that was to contradict me to coming out and publishing the reports and the findings. She was backed by the government. She was backed by the Prosperity Party to speak up and keep the lead on and cover up.
But you stayed on in the government for, 8, 9 months, even though you knew that Eritrean and Ethiopian soldiers were engaged in widespread rape in Tigray.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I wanted to actually keep on pushing for the victims, for the sake of the victims, to be in there so I can continue the good work, so I can really challenge the PP and the government until I found that I was no longer able to do that.
But what were you doing for the victims in the meantime?
We established safe houses. We built 5 safe houses. And at that particular moment, we can only, we had access to Mekelle. So we can only work in the areas of Mekelle and Haider Hospital. So we built, with the help of the interim government, we built safe houses. We've put collaboration with other ministries to really find a way to help the psychosocial support of the women that have been victim of this brutal and barbaric atrocities. And we managed to really keep on pushing to put a safer space for this woman. And not to mention also, we've seen a lot of ease for internationals after I had access to travel to Mekelle. Media were allowed to go in and report. It was around this time, and we've seen a reduced number of rape cases reported after I've spoken on my Twitter.
So when you took that decision to resign in September, again, you didn't give your reasons, and you've outlined to me the way in which you tried to keep the issue of rape on the political agenda. You just cited personal reasons. Why didn't you say in your resignation letter to Abiy Ahmed, I am resigning because Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers have been carrying out widespread rape in Tigray?
I was trying to resign prior to my resignation, and I had to find a time that suited me in terms of safety and security, as well as my family. So, like I said, I tried to fight the good fight from within. But I met with a political culture of silence, and that made me alienated. And I'm not someone that was groomed in the Ethiopian political system. So I'm someone you might call the new blood. So it's very challenging already for me, and also being among people who've been groomed in the system. And it was very difficult to find allies in a very polarized situation. So when I no longer saw or felt that I could, do anything from within, I resigned.
Can I turn to how one can bring this conflict to an end? Tigray's leader, Debretsion Gebremichael, told Newshour last Saturday that he wanted to give peace a chance, and that there had been shuttle diplomacy between the Tigrayan leadership and the federal government. Is that cause for optimism in your view?
Well, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that only if it's followed by an armistice and those talks given a real space. Like, you can't hold a white flag in one hand and at the same time you have a gun in the other, because that is not really giving a peace a chance. And that's what we're seeing in both sides.
You joined a government that was led by Abiy Ahmed, a Nobel Peace Prize winner. You must have been very proud of your appointment. You must have been very optimistic about the future of Ethiopia. So what's changed Abiy Ahmed from the man you possibly thought you were there to serve?
Well, honestly, I don't think it's only me who had that optimism towards the Prime Minister. Many Ethiopians did. Many internationals joined me with that optimism for the hope of a new dawn. But when a man becomes his own decision taker, like when he doesn't consult with others, this is what happens.
So this is a war of his own making, you are saying?
Yes.
Why?
Well, he has to achieve his beliefs, his dreams, and anyone that comes towards it. We've seen political prisoners being arrested. We've been watching for the past 3 years political opponents not only being arrested, but in other regions we've watched assassinations take place, and all that adds up to this.
That was Filsan Ahmed, who until last September and her resignation was Ethiopia's Minister of Women, Children and Youth. That's it from this edition of Newshour. From me, Julian Marshall, and the rest of the team in London. Goodbye.